Tales of Arise is the 17th mainline entry in the super long-running Tales of franchise that initially got its start all the way back in 1995 on the Super Famicom. As someone who's pretty much played every North American Tales of release up until this point, I was really looking forward to playing this one as I've heard a lot of good things about it. There's a lot of people already calling it one of the best games in the Tales of series, with some even calling it the best. Or, at least this is what I heard during the honeymoon phase, as the longer the game's been out now, the more criticisms I seem to hear. Now let's make this clear, just because I've played basically every Tales of game does not mean I come from an objective authority on the series, but having that experience, I do feel well equipped enough to give my personal opinion on how it stacks up to the rest of the games in the series. Before we get into the review part though, there's one more thing I want to clear up. On this channel, we do a lot of deep dive retrospectives into older RPGs, where we analyze them in great detail. Being a newer game, this video won't really have the same format, as I don't want to spoil any major plot details for those who have yet to play it. Instead, this will just be a pretty quick review to give my thoughts. So yeah, outside of maybe like the first 5 hours or so, there will be no spoilers in this video. Now with that out of the way, let's talk Tales of Arise. In this game, you play as Alphen, a Dahnan slave who wears an iron mask and can't feel any pain, along with having no memory of his past. Yeah, the whole amnesia trope may not be the most unique thing in JRPGs these days, but it's the execution that matters, and I still think the story is captivating enough. In the world of Tales of Arise, or worlds I should say, there are two different types of races, Dahnans and Renans. Dahnans live on the lower world, while Renans largely reside on the planet in the sky. With that said, these races are not equal, even though visually they kinda look like it. The Renans rule over the Dahnans and basically use them as slaves. While most of the Renans do live on their home planet, a good amount of them live on the Dahnan world below to carry out the slavery, with 5 Renan lords ruling over 5 regions, separated by walls. A lot of the game's story revolves around liberating the Dahnan people from the 5 Renan lords, however it does branch out a lot from there, but I won't get into that because of spoilers. I wouldn't say the story is the absolute best in the series, but it's still pretty good and did a fine enough job keeping me engaged. It did a much better job than some other games in the series, like, let's say, Tales of Vesperia. I really love that game and it's easily one of my favorites in the series, but I'll be the first to admit its main strengths don't lie in the story, as its story kinda sucks and lacks focus. The story in Tales of Arise, on the other hand, I quite enjoy it. Regardless, I would argue that the Tales series isn't really known for its story, but more so its characters. I do like the cast in this game. A lot, actually. I feel like every Tales of game usually has at least one party member that kind of annoys me, but to my pleasant surprise, I didn't find one like that in Arise. Even when they may act a little annoying at times, it's more just like a stepping stone on their personal journey of growth. Their dynamic and the way they play off one another is done really well, I think, and their overall personalities are pretty likable. Well, except for Xion at first. She's kinda like an ice queen, but to be fair, she has a lot of reasons for being that way. In an interesting juxtaposition to Alphen, who can't feel any pain, Xion causes pain to anyone who touches her through the form of thorns. As one would expect, this leads to a unique connection between the two. But yeah, the characters just see good development throughout the game, and I really like the relationships between each other. Law and Rinwell have this cute little brother-sister dynamic where they bicker a lot, but deep down have a lot of admiration for the other person and will always have their back. Alphen and Law have this big bro, little bro dynamic where they're super competitive with each other and try to one-up the other person with training and fighting. As someone who's bonded with a lot of gym bros before and motivated each other to get stronger, I really like this. And then yeah, to round it out, you got Kasara, who's basically the protective mom of the group, and Ohalim, the eccentric uncle who's always saying offensive shit. Overall, I would say this one's definitely up there as one of my favorite casts in any Tales of game for sure. In a series that's known for its character interactions and relationships, that's a big compliment. The voice actors do a pretty good job at bringing their personalities to life, I feel.
Since we've already come this far, what do you say we have a little one-on-one with our rocks strapped on?
Hell yeah! I'm down for that! Just give me a second, I'll be all ready to roll!
Speaking of being brought to life though, nothing does that better in this game than the visuals. Honestly, this is probably the best looking Tales of game ever in comparison to its peers at the time of release. The only other ones that were on the same level were Tales of Fantasia, which admittedly is easily one of the best looking games on the Super Famicom, and Tales of Vesperia, but I feel like that one's graphics didn't get fully appreciated until much later on, after we saw how well cel-shaded styles hold up. But right from the get-go, Tales of Arise already looks fantastic. They used a different engine than the previous few Tales of games, and it looks really good here, I think. The anime-esque style is still kept, while looking more realistic than ever. I really like it. As good as the character models look though, the environments are really where it's at. Some of these places are just so breathtakingly gorgeous that I either had to pause the game or take a little scenic walk to admire its full beauty. Like the first time you get to Elda Manancia, absolutely jaw-dropping. The game really wants you to know it too. Definitely a little humble brag from the devs. I'm also a big fan of how diverse the settings are. Like you start the game in this deserty mountain, fiery volcano place, then go to snowy tundra-like places, lush and vivid forests, and yeah, it's just really cool and feels like an adventure. With that said, I do think the lack of overworld map does hurt the scope and scale a bit, but we haven't gotten this in a Tales of game since Vesperia, and modern JRPGs have pretty much done away with that mechanic entirely, so I've come to expect it. I don't get my hopes up for them anymore, but I know if I don't mention it, there'll be someone in the comment section talking about how the connecting areas lack the same immersion and scale as the overworld maps from some of the old games. They're not entirely wrong, but it is what it is. I do really miss overworld maps too. Visuals aside, the game sounds okay. I don't know, maybe I just need to listen to the OST more, but on first listen, some of the tracks seem kinda forgettable. Honestly, I can't even remember what a lot of them sound like off the top of my head, besides the battle theme, which admittedly is really good. The music's not bad by any means, it's definitely passable, it just doesn't stand up to a lot of the best music in the series, in my opinion. What does stand up as one of the best in the series though, if not the best even, is the incredibly fun combat. Man, battles are just so flashy and colorful and dopamine-inducing, it's really one hell of a time. For those who have never played a Tales of game before, here's a quick rundown on how battles work. When exploring the map, you touch an enemy to initiate combat, where the game then transitions to a different battle screen. The game then plays out like an action RPG/3D fighter where you chain attacks together to create combos and stuff like that. All of your party members have different playstyles as well, giving you a lot of variety to experiment around with. It's super fun. With that said, it did take a bit for it to pick up and get going. The first couple hours or so, I really wasn't having that much fun to be completely honest, and it just kinda low-key had me worried if I was becoming that old jaded bastard who can't derive entertainment from new games anymore. Fortunately, when I started gaining more party members and unlocking new mechanics like boost attacks and boost strikes, this changed very quickly. Like it got to the point where I was having so much fun that I began procrastinating some real-life responsibilities a bit. Something I haven't really done since Dragon Quest XI, Persona 5, and Like a Dragon. The fluidity of how you seamlessly connect all of your regular attacks, arts, boost skills, and other mechanics is just so smooth and satisfying. The way that gameplay rhythm hits, I just couldn't get that old Pacha meme out of my head. Now with all that praise aside, I will say that battles do get pretty repetitive towards the end with how spongy enemies are. Honestly, the game kinda does start dropping in quality a bit after about 2/3 of the way through, as the pacing is just bogged down by long dungeons, long battles, and a lot of text. In its defense, Tales of Arise isn't the only JRPG this generation to suffer from a stronger start than finish. Like even though I really love Dragon Quest XI and Persona 5, in my opinion, the stronger parts from those games come from the beginning and middle, and not so much the end. Not to excuse it I guess, but just saying that it's not the only great JRPG to have this same problem. But yeah, since I'm already criticizing, might as well mention my other small nitpicks with this game before ending on something positive. For being an action RPG, all the invisible walls are pretty annoying. Like sometimes it just seemed unnecessary, like all I had to do was take a step to the right and then all of a sudden I could jump past the same part. In some instances, I wasn't even trying to jump to a place where you can't go, as you can clearly walk around and still go to that same spot, so I just didn't get why I couldn't jump there. If it was a turn-based RPG, I don't think it would have bothered me as much, but considering it is action and exploration is encouraged, it just seemed a little jarring. I mean, I got over it, so it's not a huge deal, but still. Next, for being a big budget game, there's kind of a lot of noticeable typos. Almost an inexcusable amount, honestly. Like I don't really remember the same frequency of spelling mistakes in any other JRPG this generation, so they really could have done a better job here. I also found it kinda weird how when your characters are bantering at the start of campfire scenes, their mouths don't move at all despite hearing audible dialogue. Like when it pans over to the person's face and you hear them talking without their mouth moving, it's just a little immersion breaking almost, I don't know, it's weird. Speaking of campfires, I'm a little upset that I didn't play this game before we made our video about campfires and JRPGs, as these scenes would have fit really well there, but oh well. Anyway, this next part isn't really a criticism, but more of an observation, but I found it kinda interesting how they refer to literally every monster in this game as a Zoogle. At first I thought they were just referring to those little wolf creatures as Zoogles, but then they started calling Golem rock monsters Zoogles as well, and basically anything that moved, and I was just like, wait, what? But yeah, this isn't a negative, I just thought it was funny. Speaking of funny, I like all the owls that you can track down that give you accessories in this game. I genuinely kinda laughed at the way some of these little chunkers sounded.
Hoo hoo hoo. Hoo. Hoo hoo hoo.
Personally, I thought Berseria had way too much silly side content like turtles and cats, so I'm glad they toned it down here. It's a lot more palatable and doesn't seem like as much of a stark contrast. Plus, I really like Hootle as a mascot companion, he's pretty cute. Another thing I think Arise does better than previous entries is cooking. I feel like I barely used the cooking mechanic at all in most other Tales of games, so it was a nice surprise to see how useful it is here. For once, I actually found myself buying ingredients. All the various effects you can get from cooking is a pretty nice bonus, so there's really no reason not to do this often. I'm also a fan of the skits in this game. I know there was some skepticism about them at first as they were moving to a different style, but I think these look really good and it's cool to see some more life and movement into them. I think it's a necessary step forward for the series while not abandoning their heart and charm. And honestly, that's really how I feel about this game as a whole. After Zestiria and Berseria, I really thought the series was in need of a next generation overhaul, and Arise did just that. It's not perfect, but I think the changes are mostly solid and provides a nice foundation to build off of. Is it the best in the series? I don't know, Symphonia is really hard to top in my opinion, but it's still really good. I certainly enjoyed it immensely better than the last couple titles though. I don't think Zestiria and Berseria are bad games, but I do think this one kinda blows them out of the water. To be honest, I almost feel like my love for the series was almost kind of starting to fade a bit, but Arise brought me back and I'm all in again. I can't wait for the next entry. If you're new to the Tales of series, I would definitely say that this one's a fantastic entry point. It may not be the truest representation of the games before this, but it still has enough of that identity with a lot of quality of life improvements we expect to find in modern games. Now regarding the video title, I haven't played Shin Megami Tensei 5 yet, so I can't accurately say if it's the best JRPG of 2021 or not, but what I can say is that it's a damn good game and well worth your time. Alright, that about wraps up this video. Thanks for watching everyone, we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, it would mean a lot if you could either hit that like button, or even consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Since our Squaresoft video last week, we've been fortunate enough to actually double our subscribers since then, so to all you new faces out there, I just want to say, welcome and thanks for being here. We'll still be covering a lot of classic RPG content going forward, so no worries if this one wasn't your speed. For the ones that have played Tales of Arise though, how do you guys feel about it? Let us know in the comments below. For those that want to see more Tales of content, we have released a complete retrospective over the entire series, along with individual videos over Tales of Symphonia and Tales of the Abyss, so those are some good vids to check out if interested. As always, just want to give a huge thanks to our Patreon supporters, which has also more than doubled in the last week. We knew that Squaresoft video had potential, but did not expect it to blow up the way it did. I can't even begin to express how grateful we are. Seriously, thank you guys so much. Other than that, thanks again for watching everyone, and hope you have an awesome day. This is Corbin from Gaming Productions. Until next time.